Part 43. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 421. Feng Qingxiu wiped her tears, turned the book to the first few pages, and read all the records about Lu Jiang carefully. She wanted to find the cause of Lu Jiang's death, she wanted to help Lu Jiang avoid shrapnel damage, and she didn't want his hero to leave this wonderful world at the age of 65. He has been fighting on the front line all his life. He has been thinking about the country and the army all his life. He has been fighting for the country's territory all his life. He has not yet seen the return of Hong Kong and Macau, and he has not yet seen the country's rapid development. Isn't it just shrapnel? Wasn't it just the shrapnel that pierced the heart? She has a body armor, a high-tech body armor, and there are more than a dozen pieces of body armor in the space. She wants to change the body armor and let Lu Jiang wear it secretly. She will wear a body armor whenever he goes to the battlefield. She does not believe that Lu Jiang will be hit by dozens more shrapnel in his body and will not be able to get them out. Her hero, the country's hero, did not die on the battlefield, but lay on the cold operating table and stopped breathing. She couldn't imagine how painful and regretful he must have been at that time. Etc. Feng Qingxiu rubbed her eyes. The book said that the most deadly shrapnel in Lu Jiang's body was on the battlefield in 1961. In order to cover the retreat of his comrades, he was hit by more than 30 shrapnel in total, and one shrapnel cut an artery. He was bleeding heavily and almost died. After being rushed to the military hospital, several doctors worked together to remove some of the shrapnel, but some of it could not be removed. Most of it was located between the chest and abdomen. It was also at that time that fatal hidden injuries were left. Whenever it rains on cloudy days, it will be extremely painful. Wasn't 1961 the year before last? Wasn't it the year she went to visit Lu Jiang? Wasn't it the year they got married? In other words, the bulletproof vest she gave to Lu Jiang was a meritorious service. Lu Jiang now has no fatal injuries, no residual shrapnel, and the hidden injuries have been cured with Wu Zheng's help. With the protection of body armor in the future, he should not suffer such fatal injuries again. Feng Qingxiu was immediately elated, and the crying and pain before seemed as if it never happened. She didn't believe her own conjecture, so she read it carefully again and finally determined that the shrapnel that hit Lu Yang and died in her previous life was left over from the war in 1961. This is really great news. She didn't know how bright the smile on her face was, shining like a diamond in the light. Lu Jiang will no longer die from injuries like he did in his previous life, and she doesn't have to carry any psychological baggage. Lu Jiang was not married in his previous life, but he married her in this life. She is Lu Jiang's only wife, and she has never wronged any woman. She gave birth to a lovely and lively Zibao for Lu Jiang. Maybe she traveled through time just for Lu Jiang, to prevent the country's hero from being without a wife and children all his life, and to prevent him from ever having a wife or children again. Repeat the path of the previous life, in order to prevent Lu's father from giving away his last son. This is probably because God cannot bear it, and the Lu family, who is doing good and good deeds, always has all kinds of tragedies happening to them. You are my man, my hero, and the father of our child, Lu Jiang. I will love you forever and always, be good to you forever, and will not let you live alone in the loneliness of a hero. Feng Qingxiu gently stroked the photo of 60-year-old Lu Jiang in the book. In the photo, he had a gray beard and desolate eyes. He was no longer tall and powerful. He looked like an ordinary little old man. He might have been stationed at the border. I have frostbite, and my wrinkled face is covered with pimples and indelible scars. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 422. It's so ugly. It's so ugly. Feng Qingxiu muttered something in a low voice, but it doesn't matter, she will take good care of Lu Jiang, Smooth every scar on his face, and let him continue to maintain his handsome appearance. In his later years, he will also be the most handsome old man in the army. Rather than a wizened old man who has been suffering from long-term injuries and has to use a wheelchair instead. Feeling relieved, Feng Qingxiu also had the energy to read Lu Jiang's life events. It didn't matter when he looked at it, and his brows furrowed tightly again. It turned out that this guy did not escape the impact of the catastrophe. He was dismissed from his military post in 1967 and was sent to a northwest farm to participate in labor reform with Wang Xinzhen and Ye Zhenjun. Ye Zhenjun is master yet. Because they basically belong to the same faction, Ye Zhenjun's old boss has been in labor camp for several years, let alone them. During the labor reform, Ye Zhenjun was not a division commander, but a corps commander, the highest military commander of an army. Commander Lu was not a regiment commander, nor a brigade commander, but division commander Lu, which meant that Lu Jiang would be the division commander a few years later. The Southwest Military Region has a constant and chaotic relationship with its old boss. If they want to overthrow the old boss, some thoughtful people will naturally bring down the main officers that the old boss once led, so that the old boss loses control of the Southwest Military Region. People like Lu Jiang and Ye Zhenjun actually don't have close relations with the capital. Their main tasks are on the battlefield, so they were reinstated after 2 years of labor reform and returned to the Southwest Military Region to continue to eliminate armed forces invading the border. The elements went away, and a few years later they fought another vigorous battle and formally took control of the Southwest Military Region. Commander Ye became Commander Ye, and Commander Lu became Army Chief. However, by that time the military rank system had been abolished. But when he was awarded the title again, Lu Jiang would be a general, and that would be a long time later. It turns out that I married a general and she is the future commander's wife. After Commander Ye retired, Lu Jiang took over. Although he had to retire due to injury within a few years, he did serve as the commander of the military region. Position as a member of the military leadership and entered the highest military leadership organization. The feeling of knowing the future was so wonderful. Feng Qingxiu covered her mouth with her hands, with a slight smile in her eyes. Proud, especially proud. My man is so outstanding and majestic. Before she could continue to be happy, Lu Jiang's footsteps came from outside, mixed with the voice of him teaching Zibao to call daddy, no brat, call daddy, daddy, daddy. You daddy, I called you dad 100 times, why don't you tell me something like that, little fat boy, brat, Lu Zibao. Lu Zibao was babbling, riding on his neck to show off his power. When he saw Feng Qingxiu coming out after lifting the curtain, Zibao slurred out mom and leaned towards her. Be careful, stinky fat guy, Lu Jiang gave him another nickname. Lu Zibao, who fell into his mother's arms, gave him the back of his head and hurriedly cupped it towards Feng Qingxiu's chest. But it made me exhausted. I wanted to stop and take a look at everything I saw. Finally I went to the cowshed to smell the cow dung and look at the animals. I was covered in stench. Wife, don't be in a hurry to feed him milk. I'll give it to him. Steamed egg custard. Lu Jiang took a few breaths and glared at the back of his son's head. If I can't eat it, you won't be able to get what you want, you stinky fat man. Just as he was about to go to the kitchen, he frowned when he looked at his wife's face. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 423. What's wrong? Feng Qingxiu looked at him inexplicably and urged, go and cook quickly. If you don't steam the egg custard quickly and bring it in, I will feed Zibao. Lu Jiang turned around, walked to her side, raised his hand and touched the corners of her eyes. Why are your eyes red? The circles under your eyes are also red, and there are tears on your cheeks. Don't tell me that the wind and sand have blinded your eyes. If you don't go out, you won't encounter wind and sand, and now there is no wind and sand blowing into your eyes. Feng Qingxiu was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, "You have sharp eyes. I just watched Dream of Red Mansions, and when I thought of the love tragedy between Lin Daiyu and Jia Beiyu, I couldn't help but cry, so I asked you to see it." "I don't believe it. You must not be telling the truth. Lu Zhang is not that easy to lie." "Then why do you think I cry? I am very happy now. I have a great husband, a lovely child, a group of well-behaved nephews and a beautiful sister at home. My father-in-law is very loving to me, and I can live my life as I please." "You, what reason do I have to cry secretly?" Feng Qingxiu replied playfully. There seemed to be no reason, but Lu Zhang still felt something was wrong, and his eyebrows furrowed together deeply. Okay, stop nagging, go and steam eggs for Zibao." Lu Zhang steamed the eggs and brought them to the bedroom. Zibao, who had taken off his cloak and scarf, was lying in his wife's arms, sucking milk, with two furry hooves raised. "Didn't you agree to let him eat egg custard?" Lu Zhang went over and poked Zibao's fat cheek and put the egg custard on the bedside table. "He just drinks milk. What should I do with the egg custard?" "Don't let him drink until he's half full. Let him eat egg custard." Lu Zhang touched his palm and said, "Great." Feng Qingxiu gave him a white look, stuffed Zibao, who was eating enthusiastically, into his arms, covered his shirt under his eager gaze, then picked up the egg custard, which was warm and not hot at all, and dug into it directly. The spoon was stuffed into Zibao's mouth. As soon as the soft, fragrant, smooth, and tender egg custard entered his mouth, Zibao, who was about to howl at the top of his lungs, squeaked and swallowed. After eating and drinking, and probably tired, he lay in his father's arms and hummed. "Go to sleep, brat." Lu Zhang patted him skillfully, and soon he saw that he was fast asleep. Putting his son on the inside of the bed and covering him with the quilt, Lu Zhang turned around and looked at Feng Qingxiu seriously. "Explain carefully, why are you crying secretly? Don't lie." Feng Qingxiu covered her mouth and smiled. "What? Do you want to use your training posture?" Her eyes flashed, so beautiful that Lu Zhang softened immediately. "Wife." He sat down next to his wife, held her hand, and whispered, "Did you think that I was leaving soon, so you cried secretly when I didn't know? I'm sorry, I have to leave home and you again." "It doesn't matter." Feng Qingxiu held his hand. "I'll wait for you. Zhang, no matter where you are, no matter what kind of mission you are performing, please remember that your family is waiting for you at home. Please, for your family, take care of yourself. For me, your most important task is to ensure your own safety." "Honey," Lu Zhang stretched out his hand to hold her in his arms, "I'm sorry." Leaning on his chest, listening to his heartbeat, Feng Qingxiu's voice was like snow in the wind, soft and indifferent. "Don't say sorry to me, you are my hero, and my family and I are yours. No one can live without his support." Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 424. Thinking of Lu Jiang's previous life, Feng Qingxiu felt particularly distressed. Thinking of this, she had countless words to tell Lu Jiang. She sat up straight suddenly. The top of her head accidentally bumped into Lu Jiang's chin, and her teeth touched her tongue. It was like a pain from fingers to heart. The pain was so painful that he almost burst into tears. Fortunately, the man was bleeding but not crying, but he refused to let go of this opportunity. "Honey, my tongue is broken." "Ah," Feng Qingxiu was startled and reached out to pry his mouth. "Let me see." Lu Zhang opened his mouth and stuck out his tongue. The tip of his tongue was intact, but there was a little bloodshot on one side of his tongue. Feng Qingxiu licked it off naturally. After licking her, not only she froze, her face instantly turned red, but even Lu Zhang was stunned. But when he reacted, he hugged his wife tightly and kissed her back hard. The bitten tongue didn't hurt at this time. It turned upside down in her fragrant mouth, and the kiss made her tongue numb, and she collapsed in his arms, panting. Wife. Feng Qingxiu raised her hand to cover his mouth where he wanted to continue kissing her. Zibao is here. Bad guy, his tongue is so numb that he can't even pronounce words clearly. 11 Bao is sleeping, and you can't see his parents making love. Lu Zhang glanced at him worriedly. The little guy was indeed sleeping soundly and was very considerate. Look, he's asleep, and there's nothing wrong with him. No. That's not okay, I have something to tell you. Seeing Feng Qingxiu's serious expression, Lu Zhang hugged her and put his chin on her shoulder. Honey, please give me instructions. Ajiang, we have said before that we try not to take out things in space that do not exist in this world. However, I am very worried about you, especially when you go to the battlefield. If a sword or gun falls on you, it will hurt. In my heart, I have decided that if you don't listen, you must listen to me. When you leave this time, bring another body armor, a modified body armor. Only when you are safe can we live with peace of mind at home. You are. My God, what would you tell us to do if something happened to you? Zibao is so young, he doesn't know how to call him dad yet. Don't you want to see him grow up? Teach him how to be a good person. Lu Zhang felt nothing but guilt. I'm sorry, wife, for making you live in fear. Don't say you're sorry, just say you listen to me. Feng Qingxiu's attitude was very firm. She didn't want her husband to suffer from shrapnel intrusion like in his previous life. Although he avoided fatal injuries in 1961, no one can predict whether he will be injured again in the future. Her appearance has changed the trajectory of her destiny a little. The flapping of a butterfly's wings can cause a tsunami. While she is glad that Lu Zhang avoided fatal injuries, she is also afraid that something irreversible will happen in the future that never happened in her previous life. Yes, wife, I listen to you, Lu Zhang answered quickly, and then lowered his voice. The previous bulletproof vest passed the road in front of Mr. Yet. I was too careless. It should not have been given to me. You have caused so much trouble. Fortunately, Mr. Yet and the others have no intention of caring about it. Oh, Mr. Yet is not the division commander now, he is Commander Yet. If there is anything in the space, I will take it with you. I want to live more than anyone else. Go down, I want to live a lifetime with you. A lifetime is very long, I have to take good care of myself. Feng Qingxiu was very happy. Okay, I will remodel the body armor for you tonight and make a few more coats for you to replace. Then we will go to the city tomorrow to take pictures and take family photos. You and Zibao will take a few more pictures, and wait for the wedding. Now that Bao can speak, I'll teach him to call you daddy. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 425. When they heard about the family photo, the children were more happy than anyone else and were curious. They had seen the photos, but none of them had taken them. So, early in the morning, everyone put on their cleanest and most beautiful clothes, washed their hands and face cleanly, and asked Feng Qingxiu to ask for some ice cream to rub on their faces, making them white and fragrant. Feng Qingyun specially combed 2 braids for herself and tied them with a red headband. Father Lu temporarily entrusted Uncle Su and Aunt Su to guard the cowshed, and borrowed the production brigade's mule cart. Lu Zhang was driving, but not everyone was on the bus. Lu Tianjun and Guan Cheng walked with Lu Zhang. Lu's father did not get in the car, so Feng Qingxiu sat in the car with the younger children. Feng Qingxiu, who was wearing a military coat, a military cap and a big scarf, sat upside down in the car with an old mattress underneath and a quilt covering her body. Lu Tianzi, Guan Yu, Feng Qingyun and Song Gang's legs were hiding under the quilt. They formed a circle. The child's face was blown red by the wind, but his excitement remained unchanged. There was a bulge on Feng Qingxiu's leg. She squirmed for a moment and poked out a small head, wearing a tiger head hat. Ah, Zibao lay in his mother's arms and looked excitedly at the scenery on both sides of the road. The snow had not yet melted and everything was covered in silver. There were very few footprints and wheel marks on the road. It seemed that few people were traveling. Country people work often and have strong legs and feet, but mules don't walk very fast and can keep up with them. The two of them arrived at the county seat while chatting and laughing. The first destination was the photo studio. When he saw a large family coming to take family photos, the photographer was not surprised, but he was very impressed by Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu. Aren't they the ones who came to take wedding photos a few years ago? Seeing the child in Feng Qingxiu's arms, the photographer smiled and said, "Congratulations, the child is so big." "Thank you." Feng Qingxiu was very polite. "Comrade, do you still remember us?" "Of course," the photographer replied while adjusting the camera, "I basically remember that people who come to take pictures with me are rare. Talented and beautiful women like you are rare, so naturally I am deeply impressed. You came to take wedding photos 2 years ago, and you come to take photos today. The whole family is happy, the life is prosperous, and the family is full of children and grandchildren. It is because of the good management of the leaders that we are so lucky." Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, "Comrade is right. Without leaders, there would be no new China. Without new China, there would be no good life now. We are all extremely grateful to the leaders." It should, the photographer adjusted the camera and asked, "Take a family photo first." Feng Qingxiu saw that the child was a little nervous and that Lu Tianzi could walk with the same hands and feet, so she smiled and said, "The family portrait will be taken later. First, I will take a father-son photo of my wife and my child." "Okay." The photographer directly asked Lu Zhang to sit on the chair, while Zibao sat on his lap, facing the camera. The little guy was still wearing a tiger hat, even though his cloak and scarf were taken off. He was not afraid at all. He rolled his big eyes and became excited when he saw Feng Qingxiu. "Ah," he stretched out his hand towards Feng Qingxiu. Feng Qingxiu waved her hand. "Zibao, sit in daddy's arms and take pictures with daddy. Be obedient." Ah, Zibao didn't seem to understand what she meant. 11 Bao, be obedient. "Dad won't spank you." Lu Zhang, who was sitting upright, helped 11 Bao sit upright and held him tightly with both hands. Both father and son faced the camera. He looked directly at the direction of the camera and did not look down at his son, so unexpectedly, at the moment when the camera flashed, a big bubble popped out of Zibao's nose. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 426. The photographer and several children burst into laughter. Zibao snot bubbles. Haha, Zibao is so cute. How come his timing is so accurate? You must keep the photo forever and show it to Zibao when he grows up. Zibao, haha. Haha. He is so cute. Hey, fat boy is so happy. Do you want to take another photo? The photographer asked Feng Qingxiu. Feng Qingxiu laughed so hard that tears almost flowed out. She wiped the corners of her eyes and nodded affirmatively. When I wipe his nose, would you please master take another photo of the father and son? Just like Lu Tianjun said, that scene just now John can be regarded as a family heirloom. She walked over to wipe Zibao's nose, but she couldn't get away. Seeing her lifting her feet to leave, Zibao was so anxious that he trembled all over and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Mom!" Although he knew how to call Mom, he didn't realize what Mom meant at all. He rarely said it. Only occasionally when he was anxious, he would call Mom when he saw Feng Qingxiu. Sometimes Lu Zhang taught him to call dad, and he said it, but it's the word mother. King Xiu, let's take a photo together as a family. I'm not happy to take a photo with that brat. Lu Zhang had said so Feng Qingxiu would certainly not refuse. So, Feng Qingxiu sat on the chair, holding Zibao in her arms, while Lu Zhang stood behind her on the left side, with one hand on the back of the chair. Zibao is very honest as he sits in his mother's arms, his eyes staring at the camera. Okay, the photographer rarely sees such an outstanding family of three, especially the fat baby, who is fair and chubby, with handsome eyebrows and big eyes. Most families cannot raise such a blessed child. Next, the family portrait was taken. The photographer brought two benches that were about the same height as the chairs and placed them on both sides of the chairs. The old man was sitting on a chair, holding the baby. The two comrades were sitting on the left and the right, and the children were standing behind them. The two older children stood in the middle, with shorter children standing on both sides, two on each side. Individual. According to the arrangement of the photographer, everyone stood up one by one. Father Lu and Mr. and Mrs. Lu Zhang were very relaxed, but the children in the back were nervous, all with serious expressions. No matter what the photographer said, it was useless, so he just took a picture. Feng Qingxiu asked the photographer to take a photo of Song Gang alone so that he could send it to his parents. Cao Hui and Wang Xinru were stationed at the border with the troops. In the plateau area, the environment was harsh and supplies often couldn't be kept up. They were in the same place as Lu Zhang, so they didn't come to pick up Song Gang for fear that he wouldn't be able to adapt, but they often sent money and tickets. Mail things. When paying after taking the photo, Lu Zhang said, "Comrade, please give us 2 more copies of each photo." "No problem, I'll pick it up in a few days." The photographer had already noticed the military uniform on his body. He must have been stationed in the army for a long time. He rarely goes home once a year, so he had to take photos of his family with him. After leaving the photo studio, the children who made a rare trip to the city didn't want to go back. Feng Qingxiu took the money and tickets and handed them to Father Lu. "Dad, take the children to a state-owned restaurant for dinner. Don't be reluctant to buy them. Zibao's milk bottles and milk powder are in the bag. Ask the waiter for some boiling water to make the milk powder." Ah and Zhang went to the scrap collection station to have a look. Father Lu understood, "Come here early to pick us up. You also have to eat." "I brought dry food, Dad, don't worry about us," Feng Qingxiu responded, pulling Lu Zhang to drive away the mule cart. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 427. I haven't been to the scrap collection station for a long time. Because of the cold weather, the staff were a little lazy and let them in without much questioning. The waste in the scrap station is still mainly recyclable waste such as calligraphy and painting, waste paper, newspapers, wood, copper, ironware, etc., occasionally mixed with some porcelain, and is piled in different categories. Some are piled in the open air, covered with snow, like snow mountains. Same. Feng Qingxiu thought it would be the same as before, without many particularly precious things in it. Unexpectedly, when she walked closer to the waste paper pile, she saw at first sight a calligraphy and painting that could be auctioned for hundreds of millions before she traveled through time. It was not properly protected on a snowy day, so it was a little damp, and the picture was slightly damaged. Fortunately, the damage was not in the inked areas, but in the white space. She carefully pushed aside other scraps of paper that were pressed against the painting and took the painting in her hands. The framed bamboo scroll must have been removed, leaving only a painting. Uncle Li was sorting out the unloaded scraps, sorting them one by one. He was very familiar with Feng Qingxiu. After all, he came here a lot. Seeing that she liked the painting, he said, "If you want, I will put it between the scraps in a while, take it out and I'll weigh it for you so that no one else asks you to take it out. The scrap station has regulations. These things are all bad and should be pulped for reuse. Feng Qingxiu was overjoyed. Thank you, Uncle Li, I'll trouble you later. Uncle Li's family lived on his salary, and life was very difficult. Even so, he did not become resentful. The only time he quietly asked Feng Qingxiu if he could not afford high-priced fine grains on the black market was if he had any at home. He was willing to pay for it. He wanted to buy some fine grains to make noodles for his mother, who was seriously ill and about to die. It was after the autumn of last year. Feng Qingxiu went to the city to grind flour. While waiting in line, he came to the scrap station to search for treasures and gave him a few kilograms of flour directly. Uncle Li was extremely grateful, and later opened the door for Feng Qingxiu. Lu Zhang has been influenced by his ears and eyes since he was a child, and his eyesight is also very good. As soon as he came in, he noticed a copper lump and weighed it in his hand. Uncle Li, where did you collect these things? Uncle Li smiled and said, I haven't heard much about the confiscation of homes in the past 2 years. It only happened when the local tyrants were attacked to divide the land and classify the land. These things were recovered from various counties. Some families used to be rich, but now they are. If you don't feel comfortable, you take out your old things and sell them. The country strictly prohibits private trading, and the inspections will be strict next year. No stalls are allowed in the original flea market. It is said to harm the national interest. The only way is to send it to the scrap station. So you can get all kinds of things. It's much cheaper to buy used goods from junkyards than in flea markets. The flea market is just like the black market. Scrapyards all charge according to national standards and sell what they charge. Feng Qingxiu didn't find it strange at all. Although many big landowners and capitalists were unlucky not long after the founding of the People's Republic of China, most of them were unlucky during the cultural catastrophe. The scrap collection depots at that time were a big help. Thinking about the news I have seen, many rich people use cultural relics as their first pot of gold and then make a fortune. Therefore, there is never a shortage of discerning people in the world. I see. Uncle Li, then I'll pick a few more things. You can cover me later. Uncle Li said without hesitation, you pick whatever you want, and I will weigh it for you and settle the accounts. The calligraphy and paintings were sandwiched in the textbook that could be taken out. The more precious wood materials were bundled together. The copper knives and bronze daggers were placed together with the copper brazier. I bought several clay pots and colorful porcelain bowls for a total of 18 yuan and 9 cents. 7 cents. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 428. The treasures he found were placed in the car and covered with an old mattress. After walking away, Feng Qingxiu guarded the carriage. Lu Zhang was wrapped in an old military coat to cover up the military uniform inside, and went around the black market again. He spent 10 yuan to buy an jade bead necklace and 2 jade bracelets for his wife. It's full of bright colors and beautiful. He didn't like other things, and it must be difficult for his wife to catch his eye. Feng Qingxiu really liked it, but the price he bought was a bit expensive. The two brothers Lu Tianwan and Guancheng went to the city last time to wander around, and the jade jewelry they bought was twice as good as these ones, and they only spent 8 yuan. Comes with an emerald snuff bottle. However, even a blade of grass given to her by her husband is fairy grass. After putting away these pieces of jewelry, the couple ate some steamed buns and drove to the state-owned hotel to meet their families. Halfway through, they suddenly heard someone calling them from behind. No, it's called Feng Qingxiu. The voice sounded familiar to Feng Qingxiu, and she turned around and asked, Brother Fiheng, is it you? It's me, Shen Fiheng, who was chasing all the way, was holding onto the shaft of the mule cart, panting, Sister, if I meet you, if I don't meet you again, I will be ready to find you. Feng Qingxiu smiled, Brother Fi Hung, you also know that we country people don't go to the city often. Can't you go to our house to find something? It's not like you don't know where our house is. Just wait and see in the city. If it weren't for today, how long do you have to wait until you meet us? What do you want from me? It seems important to you. Shen Fi Hung chuckled and rubbed his fingers. You might as well say it bluntly, we can do it and we will never refuse. Thank him for his previous efforts in the matter of Uncle Su and his wife. After hearing Feng Qingxiu's words, Shen Fi Hung immediately puffed up his chest, but his voice was very low. Nothing else, I just asked a big girl to buy some white flour rice and other fine grains. Isn't it the Chinese New Year soon? I must get some good ones. Just stuff. I went to all the black markets and most of the countryside and only bought 3 kilograms of flour, which was not enough to fill my teeth. It is rare to see fine grains in the black market. Most country people do not want fine grains when receiving rations because coarse grains are distributed in large quantities. In addition, most of the production brigades are poor and many people starve to death. It is even harder for him to find delicious fine grains. Feng Qingxiu smiled lowly, go to our house tomorrow. I don't want money, I want things, you know. Shen Fi Hung raised his thumbs and said, it turns out I'm not the only one with discernment. Okay, tomorrow morning I'll bring the good stuff I've been hunting around to find you. Your family is in the Wanglu Brigade, so it's easy to find. Having achieved his goal, Shen Fi Hung turned to look at Lu Jiang, who had been silent but staring at him very defensively, and said with a smile, Sister, this is your brother Lu Jiang who is serving in the army, right? It looks like it's just different from ordinary people, it's mighty and majestic, that's it. He raised his thumb again. When Lu Jiang heard his wife mention Shen Fi Hung, he nodded to him, but said nothing. His expression of emotion and anger was very majestic. Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, he doesn't like to talk, Brother Fi Hung, don't be surprised. No. No, Shen Fi Hung shook his head fiercely, this is the majesty of a high official, or the evil spirit that has been on the battlefield for a long time. I know it. Sister, it's settled, I'll leave first. Go home and cook for my milk. Okay. Feng Qingxiu waved her hand at him as a goodbye gesture. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 429. Shen Fi Hung seemed really anxious. Early the next morning, Lu Jiang was cooking. When he heard a knock on the door, he closed the bottom of the stove to prevent it from falling and causing a fire. He left the kitchen, opened the door, and faced directly Shen Fi Hung's smiling but slightly red eyes were pushing an old bicycle, which looked dusty. Hi, Brother Lu Jiang, Shen Fi Hung changed his words without changing his expression. Although he called Feng Qingxiu the eldest sister, which was a relative of her aunt, but when he inquired about the location of the Lu family, he inquired about Lu Jiang's details and did not dare to call him eldest brother again. Lu Jiang is much older than him, so he deserves to be called a big brother, Shen Fi Hung thought ruthlessly. Lu Jiang turned sideways and opened another door, come in. The child went to the city yesterday to take pictures, and ate a big bowl of egg noodles at a state-owned restaurant. After playing all day, he was so happy that he couldn't sleep. He lay down in the middle of the night, so he didn't get up now. The yard was extremely quiet, and he could only hear chickens crow and ducks crow. Shen Fi Hung looked at it for a few times and said, Brother Lu, your family is living a really good life. The house is neat, the floor is clean, and strings of red peppers and corn cobs hang on the wall under the eaves, which is a sign of prosperity. Lu Jiang smiled after hearing this and invited him into the room. Breast milk was not enough. Feng Qingxiu was feeding Zibao milk powder. When she saw Shen Fiheng come in, she asked, "Has brother Fiheng eaten?" "No, I came here early in the morning, afraid that you would regret it." Shen Fiheng scratched his head and put the box he brought on the table. "Sister, I know you women like jewelry, so I bring them here. Some are expensive and some are cheap, you can choose, you can keep them all, as long as you give me food." Feng Qingxiu handed the Zibao to Lu Zhang to hold, and opened the box herself. The wooden box is filled with jewels and treasures. Most of them are jade and jade jewelry, with very few gold and silver jewelry. They vary in value and quality. Ah, Zibao pushed away the bottle and stretched his upper body to lie on the table. Lu Zhang understood his virtue and held him close to the wooden box. The little guy grabbed a string of coral beads in the box. "Do you like Zibao?" Feng Qingxiu smiled and picked out the best quality jewelry from the box. Normally, she really doesn't like it. A bright pink diamond ring, a rich emerald bracelet, a pair of dongju earrings, an emerald green snuff bottle with excellent water quality, a suet fat jade sign, a pair of white jade twist bracelets, a silver hairpin inlaid with green pearls and a pair of gold silk bracelets inlaid with eastern pearls. And the coral beads that Zibao got, that's all. Feng Qingxiu stopped looking at the others. Lu Zhang held Zibao with one hand and took out a golden phoenix hairpin inlaid with filigree from the box. The phoenix was inlaid with several rubies and pearls. "Add this hairpin." Seeing the colorful hairpin, Zibao immediately gave up the pearl and took it. Shen Fiheng said enthusiastically, "Brother Lu, sister, you are indeed rich in knowledge and have extremely precise eyesight. What you picked are the best jewelry in the box. I spent a lot of money and food when I collected them." Feng Qingxiu smiled slightly. "Stop being so nagging, big brother, just give me a price." "Okay, big sister, just go ahead and I won't go on." Shen Fiheng pondered for a moment. 50 pounds of corn flour and 20 pounds of white flour. Except for gold hairpins and gold bracelets, I didn't spend much money on anything else, especially food. There is no way to talk about it. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 430. In this world, it's strange that the good things grandma talks about are not worth much. After Shen Fiheng said his request, he looked at Feng Qingxiu anxiously, fearing that she would think that he was too open-minded, but there was nothing he could do. He had to get food and manage the few cotters with whom he had personal dealings. Not expensive, Feng Qingxiu thought. She nodded to Shen Fiheng. "Brother Fiheng, we have made an agreement. Once the money has been paid, there will be no regrets." Shen Fiheng grinned. "If you don't regret it, if you don't regret it, if you regret it, you are a bastard. Compared with food, these jewelry items are nothing. In this world, food is the most important. In 1961, I exchanged 200 kilograms of sweet potatoes for it's a big yard, and now the rent alone is enough to support me." I couldn't help but show off my great achievements. Feng Qingxiu's eyes widened. 200 pounds of sweet potatoes, not dried sweet potatoes, how about a big yard? What a deal. So, according to the market conditions, I thought I was taking advantage of the jewelry I exchanged for coarse and fine grain, but in fact it was the other party who took advantage, right? Right? Shen Fiheng didn't know what Feng Qingxiu was thinking, but he gave Feng Qingxiu another blow, not lightly but not too hard. In the black market, except for gold and yuan datu, which can be sold for some money, other things are very cheap and can be exchanged for several kilograms of coarse grains. The other party has to burn high incense. If you like it, sister, I will get some for you next time. Just prepare the food for exchange. He doesn't want any money. Brother, you are dishonest. You just said you spent a lot of money and food, and now you say it's not valuable. Why did you accept it if it's not valuable? Feng Qingxiu was curious. According to common sense, most people accept gold and silver. Jewelry is normal and few people want jewelry. Shen Fihong didn't hide it from her, and replied, my grandma said, those are all good things. They were valuable in the past, but the world is not right, but there is no harm in keeping it in your hands. I will listen to my grandma. There are with the surplus food and money, I went into various black markets, and then dealt with those who participated in the house raids, and got a lot of things from them. Sister, we are in the same way. You must have forgotten me, brother. Each other, each other. Feng Qingxiu put away the things, returned to the bedroom, put them directly into the space, came out and asked Lu Zhang to serve the meal, and invited Shen Fihong to eat together. Anyway, it's just ordinary food, not eye-catching. After dinner, Lu Zhang loaded Shen Fihong with 20 kilograms of white flour and 50 kilograms of cornmeal. Shen Fihong brought a flour bag and a bamboo basket, and according to Feng Qingxiu's wishes, handed him a dozen eggs from Cheng Baoqiu. Shen Fihong blinked away the sourness in his eyes. Lu Zhang sent him out of the Wanglu brigade. When he came back, he encountered a lot of people standing in the branch secretary's office. They were not from his own production brigade, and there was a lot of noise. There was also a mule cart that did not belong to his own production brigade and a few small push carts. Car. What happened? Lu Zhang called to Wang Dachun, who was rushing over. Wang Dachun stamped his foot. What can happen? It's the end of the year and life is hard, so come and borrow some food reserves. The reputation of the Wanglu brigade has spread. Wang Zhenqiu held a meeting in the commune some time ago, and the commune cadres praised him in public. He felt bad at the time. Don't think this is a good thing. It is not easy to be a model. No, the extremely poor Huaguang production brigade, he came to the door and asked to borrow food and reserve food. It's on the shelves. Please order for full order. 4 updates in the morning, 28 updates now, and 16 evening updates. The total adds up to exactly 50,000 words, yeah. The update at 4 in the morning should be updated after it goes on the shelves. I updated it in advance, so I have to count. Otherwise, I will not update 50,000 words until I die. In the future, I will update 8,000 to 10,000 words. If I have enough time, I will update more.